So this is my office space that I've been filming in, and this is the condition it's in right now because we had some water damage. So long story short is that we started doing some renovations in our basement. One thing led to another, and when we opened up the walls, we realized, oh, there's water damage. So that means I am not using my office for the time being, which is part of why I haven't posted anything lately. I've got a temporary setup here in the guest room, which is all right, I guess. And our basement renovation is almost done, except for the rest of the floors because of water damage, which is lovely. On the plus side, this part is looking pretty decent. So looks like a good spot to film. All right, so back in December, my A7 IV came in, which is what I'm shooting on right now. And before that, I was not a Sony user. I'd had an A7C before. I'd used a buddy of mine's A7 III and S3 a few times. But I have never actually been a Sony shooter until December when I had my very own A7 IV. Before that, I had the Panasonic GH5, and I loved that camera. I still love it. I have it. It's my B cam right now until I can afford the S3 or the FX3. I haven't decided yet, and neither has my budget. But I have taken this camera on several shoots at this point in different settings, some of them being kind of like event style shooting where I'm getting lots of short clips. I've done some narrative work that's more storytelling, which has some longer clips, but a lot of also short clips, like 10 to 15 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. And I've shot in various different frame rates and different settings. I've done green screen stuff. And so I feel like I've put this through a little bit of a workout here and there. And probably what I specialize in doing most is long form interview style or talking head videos. And so where I just have the camera running for a long period of time. And so that's where I'm coming from. That's the experience I have with this camera so far and with Sony in general. And I'm coming from the GH5 where what I'm gonna talk about today was not an issue for me. And so moving from a different brand to the Sony, you may wanna know this before you go ahead and purchase the A7 IV or other similar Sony cameras. If you've been paying attention to all of the A7 IV updates and news and issues and stuff that have been floating around YouTube and the internet, then you might think that my biggest regret has something to do with the overheating, which is a thing and something I will talk about in a future video, but is not my biggest regret. Or you say it might have something to do with the 4K 60 crop, because coming from the GH5, I had 4K 60. I was used to it, I was accustomed to it. That was one of my go-to settings in various projects. So you might think that that's my biggest issue with this, but really it's not. It's not really cumbersome or bothersome to me at all. So you may even be thinking that maybe it's cost related because the Panasonic systems are much cheaper, especially their Micro Four Thirds system. So is the price really worth the cost of upgrading to a full frame camera or a Sony line camera, which generally tends to be more expensive than Panasonic? And no, it's not that either. And actually my biggest regret in getting the A7 IV, and something you should be aware of, especially if you're transitioning from a different camera brand, is don't buy third-party batteries. I am a cheapskate, and so I bought couple of these little guys to be a cheap way for me to be able to use this camera and not have to pay full Sony price for their main batteries. And here's why this is my biggest regret, is because coming from the Panasonic GH5, the battery life was extremely good, and I bought third-party batteries all the time. I only had one go out on me in the 3 or 4 years I have been using it. And so it's great. I love it. And some of them I even had since I had the GH4. And so my thinking was going to Sony and the A7 IV specifically, getting a third-party battery or two could save me some costs. But this is going to be like the thing charging your camera, giving you the ability to use this amazing camera. And so being aware of some of the differences I have found when it comes to this is extremely important in my opinion. First off, just even their name brand batteries in general do not last as long as what I'm accustomed to, much less their third-party batteries. They just do not last long at all. Maybe like an hour, hour and a half I'm getting out of these things in various shooting situations. And so for me, this was causing a number of issues. One, because I was burning through the batteries quicker, they weren't lasting me as long, and that was becoming an issue. But also, because overheating is a thing, on the a7 IV, it is more prone to overheating with third-party batteries. They make the camera hotter, faster, and that's a whole nother topic for another video. But the fact that they just don't last very long either is kind of a big deal for me. So actually, one of my solutions for the overheating and also just for battery life in general was to get a battery plate. I found this one from an Armando video, and so check that out. I'll link it below if you're interested in that. But that's been amazing. I'm using it right now. It'll power the camera for like 12 hours or something like that, and so it's been great for me to have and great to use. So I would recommend buying something like that, and it's not quite as cumbersome as like a V-mount battery or something like that. So in my opinion, it is, if you're gonna spend money on power, get something like that that will power your monitor, your audio if you have that need, or just your camera in general. It's a much better deal for the money in my opinion. But if you're going to go with the smaller batteries, then definitely don't go third party. Definitely get name brand. Don't get the off brands. It is just not worth it. It's been a point of frustration for me many times where I may or may not have enough juice to get me through the shoot, or I have had the camera overheat on me more frequently again when using these things. So I don't know if that has anything to do with the fact that like cameras nowadays are just so spec'd out and so fantastic that they just require more juice from the little batteries, and so they just don't go as far anymore. Or I have heard that Sony batteries just don't last as long if you're coming from a different brand. If you're coming from Sony, apparently these have made progress from some older models, which is great. But for me, again, coming from the GH5, that's my perspective. And so that would be my biggest regret, was I wasted money on these when I should have just gotten a brand. The only benefit of getting these were they came with a dual charger, so that fits the Sony brand batteries and these, and you can charge 2 batteries at a time. That's been extremely helpful. But other than that, it really was not worth the money to get third party on that. So that's been my experience with the Sony a7 IV. Let me know what yours has been in the comments if you have the Sony a7 IV or any Sony camera, and see if that's kind of been, and I'd be curious to know if I'm kind of alone in that. I haven't seen much content around this topic. So I don't know, just let me know what you think. If you're thinking about switching to Sony, or if you are interested in learning more about this camera, I've got several more videos coming. I've got a few on my channel already, so subscribe if you'd like to see that kind of content. Like this video, as it will help it populate the algorithm a little bit better. Leave me a comment, and I look forward to discussing this further with you guys in the comments. Until next time, have a good one.